What's up, everybody? It's your favorite show, Get a Bucket. I'm your host, Trey, and as usual, I hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful day. Today, we got to talk about the women's side of March Madness because there have been a couple of updates, so I got to talk about these real quick. So what we're going to talk about specifically, the number one seeds, right? My women's biggest upsets, the top Sweet 16 matchups for me, as well as the women's professional players out. What I mean by that is the pro prospects, right? Women who are going to the WNBA draft. Then we also got to talk about my top sleeper teams, which I talked about before March Madness actually occurs. That audio is out there if y'all want to check that out if y'all don't believe me. And then as well as Duke's women's championship road wish list, at least mine. And again, I said this before this tournament started, so y'all can check that out if y'all don't believe me. But that's what we're going to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, let's get it on and popping. So if you guys have participated in March Madness tournament bracket, it's okay if your bracket's looking a little shaky. You have a 1 in 19.2 quintillion chance of winning, or at least having a perfect bracket. You have a better chance of winning the lottery. All right, like it's okay. It's not bad. All right. Here's the thing: on the women's side, in comparison to the men, you might have an easier chance, at least having a better first weekend, because, well, typically the lower seeds advance further. Typically. So, again, you might have an easier chance at predicting, but it's okay if your bracket's not looking too good. But the number one seeds, though, I hope you all put them forward because they did advance past the second round at least. They all actually put belt to tail pretty badly, in fact. The lowest point differential between the number one seeds and the teams they played was 35.5 points. That means like there was a point difference between the number one seeds and everyone they played by at least 36 points. We got to round up. But let's say 35. Why not, right? That's really good. Wild. That's actually much better than the men's side, keep it a buck with you. I think Duke actually was the only team on the men's side to have higher than 30. Everybody else was like an 11-point gap or below, in between 9 to 11 to 12 points. So that's pretty good on the women's side for the number one seed. So kudos to y'all, and let's see what happens after that second round. Because again, after that second weekend, because again, it's a lot more. It's a lot more stiffer competition. I can't hold y'all. Now we talked about the number one seeds, right? There weren't any upsets from that regard. Let's talk about the biggest upsets of the first weekend for women's March Madness. It was almost Kentucky, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to lie to y'all. They were a 3 seed, and they almost lost to a 14 seed, okay? It was by 1 point. It was by 1 point, so I have to note that it was almost Kentucky. But the biggest upset was, in fact, Oklahoma State, and they were a 7 seed losing to a 10 seed. So I don't really want to call that an upset, but if we have to classify something as an upset, that was it. Again, on the women's side of March Madness, things typically go as follows. The lower seeds typically win. You might get a couple of anomalies here and there, but again, lower seeds typically win. But that was the biggest upset from a team perspective. However, I got to throw this in there. Juju Watkins getting injured, having a torn ACL, that means she's out for the season. That means no more Juju. Oh my gosh, like this is terrible. And like there's reports that like she was flirting with Jaden, or at least talking with Jaden. It was perceived as flirting, right? And they were talking about how Jaden's mom put bad juju on Juju, jokingly, of course. But it's poor timing that Juju Watkins is out. So this might in fact be my biggest upset, because for USC, this is a dynamic change. This is a major change for college basketball, men or women's. It even impacts the WNBA when I think about it. So again, ladies and gentlemen, that's my biggest upset right now as far as the WNBA is concerned. Now, when I'm looking at this, because I don't all right, I'm just gonna say this. She can come back. She can come back. Look at AZ Fudd, right? She did tear her ACL and MCL and has been hooping. It has been a little journey. I'll give her that. But Juju, you can make a recovery. I just hate the timing of it. But again, I don't want to harp on that too much, ladies and gentlemen, because we got more story to talk about, and that's still fresh. So let's talk about my top Sweet 16 matchups. Oh, this is going to be a good one. In fact, we got to bring up first USC versus Kansas State. And the reason why we got to bring them up is because Juju Watkins is out. I just talked about it. So how does USC go forward? They have a number, or at least a top 5 draft pick in Kiki Iriefin. So let's see how she does leading the team, because she can up her draft stock now. So that's something that I'm noting for right now. Like, that's going to be one of my top matchups to watch. How does USC deal with this magnitude of a loss? Because Juju Watkins was their best player. Worst case, arguably worst case. But my next one is my next matchup, is Notre Dame versus TCU. Notre Dame versus TCU, ladies and gentlemen, should be a good one. Reason why I say this, Haley Van Lith has actually been helping out this TCU program be a solid program. And remember, Haley Van Lith, you might have thought she lost her confidence when she left NC State and went to LSU. And then she played Caitlin Clark, and she was sick. I get that. But it didn't look that good. Also, the whole year, she didn't look like she was dominating the way she might have been perceived, right? So I get that. But at TCU, it seems like things have gone a little bit better now. And the confidence might be there. So if she's able to actually beat this Notre Dame squad, which has been viewed pretty highly all year and has 2 potential top 3 draft picks on their squad, I gotta look at this matchup, because again, Haley Van Lith was a good team, or was a good talent, or at least was perceived as a good talent. I'm talking about first round talent. So this is going to be a quality matchup, team wise and talent wise, from a WNBA perspective. So you got to put eyes on this one. My next matchup is in fact LSU versus NC State, because we have, again, WNBA talent on the floor, ladies and gentlemen. Nafisa Morrow is a stud. Okay, I'm talking about a hooper. And then Flau'jae Johnson, we all know her. And going up against NC State, who, keep in mind, was like ranked, second in the ACC, right behind Notre Dame all season long. The team that I just talked about, who was viewed pretty highly in NCAA standings. I think this game is going to be a good one, ladies and gentlemen. LSU versus NC State, rough, rugged game. Who ends up scoring more? Who gets the offense? Because that's what it's going to be. Good defensive teams, good scrappy teams. Ultimately, it comes down to who gets a bucket more. And I know that's like, come on now, man, Trey. Like that, anybody can say that. That's what it boils down to. Who wants it more? End of day. But that's going to be a good matchup to pay attention to. And then finally, Duke versus UNC. You can't say this is biased, because, ladies and gentlemen, this is a rivalry matchup happening in the Sweet 16. If you don't want to watch this, I'm sorry, you're not a true fan of sports, because this is a good matchup right here. And keep in mind, too, we split the regular season 1-1 in the ACC. Because of this, you have to put eyes on this. But again, you don't believe me, that's cool. Just note it, and note how these girls will be playing their tails off when the game comes to start. I promise you, this will be an immense game, and I'm going to be watching it. But those are my top Sweet 16 matchups, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching that. I hope you do as well. But unfortunately, we got to transition down to the WNBA pro draft picks that are currently out of March Madness. And when I say I'm focusing on the first round specifically, because a couple other people could be making an appearance in the WNBA draft. But we're going to talk about here Georgia Amoore, because she played on Kentucky, and her team did lose in the second round by 1 point to Kansas State. Now, I said Kentucky earlier almost lost by 1 point. So the fact that they won and then lost by 1 point is really crazy to see. But that first game that Georgia played in, bro, she balled out. 34 points is insane. And we can talk about the seeding all we want to, ladies and gentlemen. 34 points is 34 points. And again, I saw a player who is extremely quick, could get her own shot off, solid three-point shooter, and can play make a little bit. And I saw that this season, and I saw that during the tournament. So again, ladies and gentlemen, I like Georgia Amoore as a player. She's a little small, But again, because of her quickness, I do believe that will help out. And I mean, second round, yeah, she shot under 33% and took 33 or 23 shots. Yes, that is something to worry about. I don't know consistently will she be getting 20 points in a game, right, for the WNBA. But I think as far as a starter, maybe we could talk about that. Or maybe even a sixth woman off the bench. Like I think that's fair to say. On a contending team, too, by the way. So again, Georgia Amoore, I appreciate your efforts. And I look forward to seeing you in the WNBA draft and hooping and getting a bucket in the WNBA. But ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to talk about my top sleepers because I did talk about these teams before, again, March Madness occurred. And if you don't believe me, go check out the audio that I had before this. But I listed off 4 teams. I said George Mason because they were the number 11 seed, and I'm a George Mason alum, right? And in 2006, the George Mason men team actually went to the Final Four. So I thought, narrative-wise, it would be cool if George Mason could have got to the Final Four on the women's side as the number 11 seed. That would be a nice storyline to talk about. But, it's cool. We lost Florida State. It hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to make a nice little journey, be like, hey, we beat them. Talk to me. You know what I'm saying? I was going to have Tasha Howard come on, be like, what's up, Tasha? Look, my girls beat y'all squad. Talk to me, baby. How you doing? How you feeling? Like, no, seriously. I appreciate George Mason, but I put them up there for narrative purposes. Outside of that, I did have Florida State because, again, Tanaya Lotson, ladies and gentlemen, is a hooper. And I use the number 4 seeds, really number 3, because number 2 and number 1s typically win the championship. So, again, I had to use 3 and below, actually, to have my sleepers. LSU, again, number 3 seed. And I talked about them already, as well as Notre Dame, another number 3 seed. So currently, 3 out of my 4 sleepers remain. But again, I talked about how the lower seeds typically advance past first round or first weekend. So I'm not going to talk about this too much. Hopefully, I have these teams remaining still past the second weekend. Because if so, we cooking with some fish grease now, baby. But ladies and gentlemen, that's what we got. So pay attention to those 3 teams that I talked about: Florida State, LSU, and Notre Dame. I think they're going to be good ones. Should be looking out for them because they can all get a bucket and defend too, now that I think about it. But now we're going to transition on to the final segment, which is my Duke Blue Devils Women's Championship wish list. At least the road to the championship. So we already beat Lehigh, right, which was the round 64. We already beat Oregon, which had Deja Kelly, who used to be on UNC, okay, in round 32. Now we get to actually play UNC for the Sweet 16. Ladies and gentlemen, I talked about the rivalry earlier. So I'm happy that we get to actually play them. And fingers crossed that we get the job done, right? But again, it's a nice little road to the championship. Because I would love for us to do this. And let's say we win a championship, Duke meeting. To say that we beat UNC along the way, that would be nice. Only thing better would be beating UNC in the championship game. But again, we got to get the job done. Fingers crossed, right? So hopefully after we beat UNC, we go to the Elite 8 and play Maryland or South Carolina. And I said Maryland because of the history or redemption, because we did lose to Maryland. Or South Carolina, because we did lose South Carolina too. And I've talked about those 2 games as well. I've talked about South Carolina at least, because that was a free throw disparity. And if we close that gap, I think it might be interesting. Also, Dawn Staley. Ooh, versus Carol Lawson. That's going to be a good matchup right there from a coaching perspective. So I think that has to occur for real, Duke versus South Carolina. But I wouldn't be mad at Maryland either. That's just me, though. Y'all know I like Maryland rivalry with Duke. I miss it all. But then after that, if we get through both again, fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed, whichever one we play. Because that is a matchup that's going to occur also. South Carolina versus Maryland. So definitely want to tune in for that one. But let's move to the Final Four, where we got Notre Dame. And this is the tiebreaker because we beat them in the ACC tournament, but they beat us in the regular season. So the ACC tournament did matter more, but this one would matter more too. So I would love to see the matchup where we decide who's definitively the better team. Getting that tiebreaker over Notre Dame, that would be a wonderful road to a championship as a Duke Blue Devil. I'm telling y'all right now. And then finally, getting to the championship and beating either UCLA or UConn. Funny enough, I didn't have USC beating UConn before Juju Watkins' injuries. I did have UCLA potentially beating UConn, but I put UConn. Actually, honestly, if I either get there, I might be okay with that. But again, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind, I have money on UCLA or UConn winning the championship. So the only way that I will be okay with either team not winning is if they get to the championship and lose to my Blue Devils. That is a wonderful road to a championship for the Blue Devils. And again, if both men and women team, a Duke Blue Devils team, can win the championship this season, we will have done something that no team has done, no school has done since UConn did it in the early 2000s. And I know they stole something from us, kind of technically, even though Florida did it when they won back-to-back championships. But still, I'm going to be selfish and say we did it. Forget Florida right now. So because UConn did that, I would like to get a little payback. And Florida didn't do it, so I got to get some payback with UConn. So I would love it if Duke, both men and women, could win the championship. And there's a possible road. But again, we got to get the job done. Fingers crossed. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that does conclude the end of Women's March Madness. So I will be coming out with more content about the updates, so stay tuned. But please let me know, one, did I miss a matchup that y'all want to focus on? Let me know. Is there anything that I missed? Please let me know. But most importantly, please like, subscribe, comment, tell anyone who's anyone about the show. My name is Trey. I'm the host of Get a Bucket. Hope you all are having a good one. Take care.